If you walked into a medieval kitchen in 1537 in the highlands of Peru, the first thing you'd notice would be the strange sight of potatoes spread across wooden tables under the intense Andean sun, left there for days in what seems like careless abandonment. The second thing you'd realize is that these supposedly primitive people understood something about preparing this tuber that modern science is only now rediscovering. Something that could explain why so many Americans today suffer from bloating, gas, and digestive distress every time they eat what's supposed to be one of the healthiest vegetables on earth. Walk into any American home today and watch someone peel a potato, cut it, and throw it directly into boiling water or hot oil, and you're witnessing the exact moment when a nutritious food transforms into a digestive nightmare. Because there's a step that was never skipped in traditional preparation, a step that indigenous people and later medieval Europeans treated as absolutely sacred, a step that modern convenience has completely erased from our collective memory. And if you want to keep discovering knowledge that history buried, subscribe now to Medieval Histories and hit that notification bell so you never miss another revelation about what our ancestors knew that we've dangerously forgotten. What you're about to discover isn't just about potatoes. It's about why your stomach rebels against foods that sustained entire civilizations for centuries. And the answer has everything to do with a preparation method that took days of patience, but guaranteed that every person, from infant to elderly, could digest this staple food without a single complaint. Meanwhile, today, we've got an entire aisle in every pharmacy dedicated to digestive enzymes, antacids, and gas relief medications, products that wouldn't need to exist if we simply remembered what every medieval cook knew by heart about preparing starchy foods. The industrial food system took something that required time and care, stripped away every protective step, packaged it for speed and convenience, and now charges you extra for the pills to fix the problems their shortcuts created. This is the story of how traditional wisdom about potato preparation was systematically destroyed in the name of progress, and why understanding what was lost could transform your digestive health starting today. You've probably felt it, that uncomfortable bloating that starts about 30 minutes after eating potatoes, the gas that seems to appear out of nowhere, the feeling that your stomach is working overtime to process something that should be simple and nourishing. If you're like most Americans, you've probably blamed your own body, thinking maybe you're sensitive to starches, maybe you have irritable bowel syndrome, maybe you just have a weak digestive system. But here's what's strange. Your great-grandmother could eat potatoes at every meal without a single digestive complaint, and it wasn't because she had a stronger constitution or better genes. Something fundamental changed in how we prepare this food, and that change happened so gradually that nobody noticed we were losing crucial knowledge with each passing generation. Today, approximately 70% of Americans report experiencing digestive discomfort at least once a week, with bloating and gas being among the most common complaints. The modern medical establishment will tell you this is normal, that it's just part of having a sensitive digestive system, that you should take probiotics or digestive enzymes or avoid certain foods altogether. But medieval Europeans, who adopted the potato from indigenous South Americans after 1545, never had these mass digestive complaints, not because they had different biology, but because they had different preparation methods. They understood something about the chemical composition of raw potatoes that modern science only confirmed in the late 1970s, something about compounds that can wreak havoc on your intestinal lining if not properly neutralized before consumption. Your grandfather ate potatoes his whole life without a single problem. He never needed antacids or gas relief medication. He never complained about feeling bloated after meals. What changed wasn't the potato itself. It was everything we do to it before it reaches our plates. The industrial food system prioritized speed over safety, convenience over care, and in the process, they removed every protective step that traditional cultures used to make this tuber not just edible, but genuinely nourishing and easy to digest. And now you're the one paying the price, both in discomfort and in the money you spend, trying to fix a problem that was deliberately created by cutting corners in food preparation. Before we dive deeper into this story, drop a comment and tell me, what city, what state, or what country are you watching from right now? I love knowing where each person in this community comes from, this community of people searching for knowledge that was buried. Leave your location down below because what you're about to discover will completely change how you see potato preparation for the rest of your life. We're going to travel back to medieval Europe right after the potato arrived from the New World. We're going to witness exactly what traditional cooks did with this strange new tuber, and we're going to understand the precise scientific reasons why their methods prevented all the digestive problems that plague us today. This isn't just about potatoes. This is about understanding how traditional food preparation methods contained wisdom that modern convenience has completely abandoned, and how that abandonment is directly responsible for the epidemic of digestive disorders that now affects the majority of Americans. So make sure you're subscribed, because we're about to uncover knowledge that the processed food industry would prefer remained buried forever. We're in the year 1598, in a modest farmhouse in the countryside near Cork, Ireland. The morning air is cool and damp, carrying the smell of peat smoke from the hearth, and the earthy scent of freshly dug potatoes piled in woven baskets near the door. A woman named Siobhan, wearing a rough wool dress and an apron stained from years of kitchen work, stands at a wooden table that bears the marks of decades of use, deep grooves carved by countless knives, and the circular stains from hot pots set down in haste. In her hands, she holds one of these strange tubers that her husband brought back from a merchant ship, these odd, lumpy vegetables that some say come from a land across the great Western Ocean, a land that nobody in this village will ever see. The potato feels cool and firm in her hands, its skin rough and covered in small eyes that seem to watch her as she examines it with the careful attention she gives to any new food that might feed her family through the coming winter. But Siobhan doesn't immediately reach for her knife. She doesn't begin peeling or cutting, because she remembers what the merchant's wife told her, a story about how the native peoples who first cultivated these tubers would never, under any circumstances, prepare them fresh from the ground. Instead, Siobhan takes the potatoes outside to a flat area behind her cottage where the morning sun is just beginning to warm the earth. She spreads them in a single layer on a large piece of cloth, spacing them carefully so each one receives direct sunlight, and she leaves them there, checking periodically throughout the day to turn them, ensuring every surface is exposed to the light. You can see the condensation forming on the skin of the potatoes as the sun's warmth draws moisture to the surface, and if you were standing there beside Siobhan, you'd notice a subtle change in the color of the potato skins as the hours pass, a slight greening that she watches for with experienced eyes, knowing that this transformation is not something to fear, but rather a visible sign of important changes happening within. As evening approaches, she gathers the potatoes and brings them inside, but instead of cooking them, she stores them in a cool, dark corner of her cottage, where they'll remain for 3 more days, resting in the darkness after their sun exposure, undergoing invisible chemical changes that her scientific mind cannot explain, but her traditional knowledge tells her are absolutely essential. On the 4th day, when she finally brings the potatoes to her preparation table, she performs another ritual that seems strange to modern eyes, but was absolutely standard in traditional kitchens everywhere these tubers were eaten. She fills a large wooden bowl with cold water drawn fresh from the well and adds a generous handful of coarse salt, stirring until most of it dissolves into the water, creating a brine that looks unremarkable, but serves a crucial purpose. Only then does she begin to peel the potatoes, and as each one is peeled, she immediately submerges it in this salt water, where it will soak for no less than 2 hours before any cooking begins. Her children ask her why she goes through all this trouble, why she can't just cook the potatoes right away like they do with turnips or parsnips, and Siobhan tells them what her mother told her, that potatoes are different. They carry something inside them that must be coaxed out through patience and proper treatment, something that will make your belly ache and your insides rebel if you try to rush the process. She doesn't know the scientific names for glycoalkaloids or resistant starches. She doesn't understand the biochemistry of solanine production or the effects of enzyme inhibitors on human digestion, but she knows with absolute certainty that skipping these steps means suffering, and that following them means her family will thrive on this new food that's beginning to transform Irish agriculture. When she finally cooks these potatoes hours later, boiling them gently until they're tender, and serves them with butter and a pinch of the same salt she used for soaking, her family eats with enthusiasm and satisfaction. And not one person complains of gas or bloating or digestive distress, because Siobhan has done what countless generations of traditional cooks understood must be done to transform a potentially problematic tuber into genuine nourishment. The secret that Siobhan and millions of traditional cooks understood lies in a group of compounds called glycoalkaloids, with the primary culprits being solanine and chaconine, which are natural pesticides produced by the potato plant to defend itself against insects, fungi, and animals that might try to eat it. These compounds are concentrated primarily in the skin and the flesh immediately beneath it, and they increase dramatically when potatoes are exposed to light or stored improperly, which is why that slight greening Siobhan watched for was actually a visible indicator of glycoalkaloid production happening inside the tuber. Now, here's what modern science has confirmed, but traditional cooks knew instinctively. These glycoalkaloids are not just bitter-tasting compounds, they're actually toxic to the human digestive system in sufficient quantities, capable of inhibiting the enzyme cholinesterase, which is crucial for proper nerve and muscle function throughout your gastrointestinal tract. When you eat potatoes that haven't been properly prepared, these compounds can cause a range of digestive symptoms from mild bloating and gas to severe cramping and diarrhea, because they literally interfere with your intestinal muscles' ability to contract properly and move food through your system. But here's where traditional wisdom becomes brilliant. The multi-day preparation process that Siobhan followed wasn't superstition. It was practical biochemistry applied without laboratory equipment. The initial sun exposure actually triggers the potato to produce chlorophyll and concentrate its glycoalkaloids toward the surface, making them easier to remove completely during peeling. The subsequent rest period in darkness allows certain enzymes within the potato to begin breaking down complex starches into simpler forms. The saltwater soak serves multiple purposes. First, salt creates an osmotic environment that draws water-soluble glycoalkaloids out of the potato flesh through diffusion. Second, it begins the process of breaking down the cell walls, making the starches more accessible to your digestive enzymes. And third, it helps leach out excess potassium, which in high concentrations can also contribute to digestive upset in sensitive individuals. Researchers at Cornell University conducted studies in 1978 that measured glycoalkaloid levels in potatoes prepared different ways. And they found that proper soaking could reduce these toxic compounds by up to 60%, while the combination of light exposure, rest, and soaking could reduce them by as much as 85%. Compare this to modern preparation methods where potatoes are scrubbed, cut, and immediately cooked, often with the skins left on because we're told that's where the nutrients are, completely ignoring that it's also where the digestive irritants are concentrated. The industrial food system made this shift not because it improved nutrition or digestibility, but because it saved time and money, because consumers started demanding convenience over quality, because nobody wanted to wait days to prepare a simple vegetable, when you could just grab a potato and have it on the table in 30 minutes. And now we're reaping the consequences of that impatience in the form of widespread digestive complaints that we treat as normal when they're actually completely preventable. The Great Betrayal happened gradually over the course of the 20th century, but if we had to pick a specific turning point, it would be the period between 1945 and 1960, when the post-war industrial food system fundamentally transformed how Americans thought about meal preparation. During World War II, speed and efficiency became paramount virtues. Women were working in factories and couldn't spend all day on food preparation like their mothers and grandmothers had. And the food industry seized this opportunity to market convenience as progress. Frozen French fries appeared in supermarkets in 1946. Instant mashed potatoes hit the shelves in 1952. And with them came a complete erasure of traditional preparation wisdom. The manufacturers of these products never mentioned that traditional cultures soaked their potatoes before cooking, never explained why your grandmother spent hours preparing what seemed like a simple vegetable, never acknowledged that the digestive problems people started experiencing might be connected to these new preparation shortcuts. Instead, they marketed their products as modern, efficient, and scientifically improved, implying that traditional methods were backward and unnecessary. The cruel irony is that these same food companies now sell you digestive enzyme supplements, probiotic yogurts, and specialized fiber products to help your gut handle their improperly prepared potato products, creating a perfect cycle of profit where they cause the problem and then sell you the solution. Look at any bag of frozen French fries today and you'll see a list of ingredients that goes far beyond potatoes and oil. There's usually dextrose, sodium acid pyrophosphate, and various preservatives, all added to compensate for the fact that these potatoes weren't properly prepared. So chemicals must be added to prevent them from turning brown, to improve their texture, to mask the bitter flavors that develop when glycoalkaloids aren't removed. The potato chip industry is even worse, taking potatoes that receive zero traditional preparation, slicing them paper thin so their entire surface is exposed skin and all, and then frying them at temperatures so high that additional toxic compounds called acrylamides form, creating a product that's so far removed from traditional potato preparation it might as well be a different food entirely. And throughout this transformation, nobody asked whether we were losing something important. Nobody questioned whether the digestive problems that started increasing in the 1960s might be connected to these changes in food preparation. Nobody considered that maybe, just maybe, traditional methods existed for very good reasons that had nothing to do with superstition and everything to do with practical observation of how foods affected the human body. Today, you can walk into any grocery store and find 50 different potato products, but not one package, not one label, not one cooking instruction mentions the traditional preparation methods that would actually make these foods digestible. They know you're searching for gut health solutions. They see you buying probiotics and digestive enzymes, and what do? They slap the word natural or wholesome on a bag of potato chips and charge you $3 more, but inside, it's the exact same improperly prepared, industrially processed product that's been contributing to your digestive problems all along. The good news is that this knowledge wasn't lost. It was just buried under decades of industrial convenience marketing. And now that you know the truth, you can start applying traditional wisdom to your own potato preparation starting today. Here's what you need to do. When you buy potatoes from the store, don't cook them immediately. Instead, take them home and spread them in a single layer on a tray or cloth in a spot that receives indirect sunlight for 4 to 6 hours, just enough to trigger those protective compounds to the surface without causing excessive greening. If slight greening occurs, that's actually fine because you'll be removing the skin anyway, which is where these compounds concentrate. After sun exposure, store the potatoes in a cool, dark place for at least 2 days, allowing internal enzymes to begin breaking down complex starches. When you're ready to prepare them, peel them thoroughly, making sure to remove not just the skin, but also any green patches or dark spots, and cut away a generous layer around any eyes or blemishes. Immediately, place peeled potatoes in a bowl of cold water with approximately 2 tablespoons of salt per quart of water, and let them soak for a minimum of 2 hours, changing the water once halfway through if you're preparing a large quantity. You'll actually notice that the water becomes slightly cloudy during soaking. That's the visual proof that compounds are leaching out into the water exactly as intended. After soaking, rinse the potatoes thoroughly in fresh water before cooking them by whatever method you prefer. Want to know if you've been fooled by industrial food marketing? Try this experiment. Prepare potatoes the modern way, quick scrub and straight to cooking, and pay attention to how you feel in the 30 to 60 minutes after eating. Then, next time, prepare them using the traditional method I just described, and notice the difference. Most people report a complete absence of the bloating and gas they'd come to accept as normal because their digestive system can actually process properly prepared potatoes without struggle. This knowledge wasn't lost, it was just buried under layers of convenience marketing and industrial food processing. And every time you choose to prepare your potatoes the traditional way, you're rescuing wisdom that kept generations healthy when life was much harder and medical care was scarce. If this video opened your eyes to what the food industry hides from you every single day, hit that like button down below. It really helps the channel keep bringing these truths that few have the courage to tell. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now to Medieval Histories and hit that notification bell, because every week we unearth more knowledge that they'd rather you never discovered about how our ancestors ate, lived, and thrived using methods that put modern processed food to shame. See you in the next video.